Richard Moore here from 8StepStartup. So welcome to the next startup business tip of the day. I'm doing 30 of these, and these are crucial tips for startup business owners, stuff to really bear in mind to make sure that you get great results as you move your companies forward. So one of the things that comes out from a lot of the reading I do is an understanding of where your weaknesses lie. And those that have read Peter Drucker's Managing Oneself will all agree that there's a really salient part in there where he talks about understanding what you're good at and what your weaknesses are. A lot of people think they know it, but actually often don't. What you need to bear in mind is you need to be clear on where your weaknesses actually are. And what you need to do is look to either improve them to a sufficient level, okay, or make them redundant altogether. So for instance, as an example, you may be starting a business up, but you're really not that great with your sales, for instance. Maybe it's just something you're naturally not taken to. There's no question, and if you disagree with this, you're simply wrong. There's no question that sales really is the lifeblood of a startup business, or in fact of any business. Without new customers coming in, you're not getting people buying your product and therefore advocating your product, passing on word of mouth, testimonials, things like that, repeat business, buying more and so on. Without cash flow, of course, as Peter Tufano told me, who is the dean over at Side Business School in Oxford, he said cash is king, and it's simply crucial to make sure you have revenue as a business, otherwise it simply won't last that long. So bearing this in mind, it's really crucial to understand that if you're not necessarily great at sales, there needs to be a focus on improving yourself, perhaps an intense period of focusing only on sales, maybe 2 or 3 weeks of just grinding out calls to people or meeting people, even though it makes you feel uncomfortable, you hate it. You know what? This is going to perpetuate your business, so you need to try and do it to get to a point where perhaps you can then afford to pay for a salesman to represent you, or perhaps you work on a commission-only basis, so you build a team around you and get people pumped enough that they can sell your product with a great commission. If you don't want to share your money, well, do you know what? If you can't make any sales yourself, perhaps you should share a bit of the money, because otherwise you're not going to make anything at all. So you need to make some tough choices sometimes, but always look, can I improve my sales? Would that be sufficient for me to get better? Or do I make it redundant, as in take my weakness out of the equation altogether and replace it with someone else? But let's be clear, you can't outsource everything, okay? You've got to get down and do, as Gary Vaynerchuk says, get down and do the dirty stuff, get down in the dirt as well as being up in the clouds. You can't delegate everything to people and say, I'll sit back, if you need me, I'll be on the beach somewhere, because, you know, everyone's doing different components of my business. You need to be in there, you know, getting things vigorously moving forward. However, it may be that perhaps you just need someone to take care of some particular element. That happens a lot with things like social media, certainly accountants. I've got a very good accountant that looks after that element for me, but it doesn't mean I know nothing about that space. I know sufficient so that I can back myself. And if everything went wrong, I could go into that seat. It would be horrible, but I could go into that seat. But ideally, I've made that not necessarily a weakness, I've improved it slightly, then I've made it a bit more redundant as a necessary skill for running my business, because I have an accountant that looks after that space for me. Okay, so think about that. What weaknesses or areas of improvement do you really have? Is it something you could improve to the level where that then takes that problem out of the equation? Or are you so, really, if you're being brutally honest, are you deficient to the point where you should make it redundant by creating a different scenario whereby that skill is no longer necessary, or you use something else, as another person or a third party or an agency to replace the need for that skill coming from you? More tips tomorrow. I hope that's been of help.